Welcome to Hoardganize with professional organizer Rachel Seavey. Every Sunday at 6 p.m., Rachel shares her expertise and compassionate approach to help you deal with overwhelming clutter. Rachel?
Hey, collectors! Welcome to the Hoardganize Podcast. I am your host, professional organizer Rachel Seavey, and today's episode is all about disaster preparation. Just last fall, we had some horrible fires here in Napa, here in the North Bay, Santa Rosa, and it left a lot of people homeless and literally without anything. I've actually had the pleasure of working with some of these people that are trying to build their lives again and trying to get organized after losing everything. And the number one regret that most people have that I've spoken to recently with our fires here in the North Bay is not being prepared. Now, it's really hard to prepare for a large fire. I mean, a lot of the times people had minutes to just grab what they could before they left with a fire on their trail. And so it is hard to prepare for something like that. But there are some things that you can do in advance to make things easier to grab in the event that you ever need to. Whether you live in earthquake country like me or dealing out there with the freezing cold on the East Coast right now, or in a different part of the country and live in a disaster zone. Here are 5 tips for disaster preparation. Tip number 1, get started. You've done a lot of thinking about it. Take some action. Create an emergency preparedness pack or kit. I've seen a lot of people simply store all of their emergency supplies in a large trash can out in their garage. I've seen other people that have emergency kits and water spread throughout their home. Now, this, my dear collectors, does not give you the permission to just throw things in a pile and call them an emergency kit. Now, if you can't access your emergency kit or your water, then it really is truly not an emergency kit. You must be able to access your emergency kit or kits at all times. This is a very important tip. I will repeat, all of your emergency supplies must not be blocked or smushed or buried or out of reach. They're not any good to you if you can't find them or reach them. Okay, so that was my disclaimer for my dear collectors, but some of the things that you do really want to keep in your emergency supply pack, medicine, food, and water. FEMA recommends 1 gallon per person per day, and that you store 3 days per person. You're definitely going to want to have some cash or some traveler's checks. Make sure you stash it well, in your garage or wherever. First aid kit is another must-have. Band-aids, any kinds of antiseptics or creams or lotions. I like bug spray. Just put a little bit of everything into your first aid kit. A change of clothing. You're definitely going to want to have 1 change of clothing, just 1, in your emergency supply kit. And if you're a female, you probably want to have your feminine supplies and whatnot. This doesn't mean a whole barrage of things, just, the necessaries. And a couple more must-haves for your emergency kit are matches and a flashlight. And make sure that you have backup batteries. You don't want to be an emergency and have your batteries not working in your flashlight. If you have infants or small children, you definitely want some diapers and some wipes in your emergency kit. Tip number 2, create a checklist. I actually have a checklist of all of my emergency kit items on my computer so that I can update it easily in case I want to add something like medicine. I also have it posted on my pantry door as well as in my emergency kit in the garage. So if you need some help deciding what to put in your emergency kit and you want some more ideas, there's a great checklist If you go over to www.ready.gov, that's kind of who the leader is, I guess, on the emergency supply list here. They're recommending that you bring, prescription medications and glasses. Important family documents should be kept in a waterproof portable container. And let's see, I'm just scanning through here. They also, this is an interesting one. Again, this is on ready.gov. This is the FEMA website. They're saying to have some household chlorine bleach and a medicine dropper, which is interesting. It says when diluted, 9 parts of water to 1 part bleach can be used as a disinfectant. Or in an emergency, you can use it to treat water by using 16 drops of regular household liquid bleach per gallon of water. And it says do not use scented, color-safe bleaches with added cleaners. So that's kind of interesting. And then they have some other pretty obvious ones. So hop over to ready.gov if you're looking for some more ideas. I feel like I've given you a lot. And also definitely don't forget your pets. I spoke about bringing diapers for your infants and stuff, but our pets are family. And I'm sure, you don't want to leave them out. So while you're putting your disaster kit together for you or your family, make sure you prepare for your pets. Some things that you might want to bring for your fur kids are a carrier, maybe a small cloth carrier if it's a smaller pet, a leash or collar, some pet food, maybe some dry or canned. You're going to have to check the expiration dates, which I'll be getting into in a while. Medicine, if your dear pet is on medicine, you want to have some backup medicine in your emergency kit. Water, enough water for them, a nice blanket, some litter, maybe a toy, just a very small amount, but all the necessities for your pet to have some comfort in the event of an emergency. Tip number 3, stay in touch. I know a lot of you are kind of loners out there, and sometimes people haven't even heard from you. But Facebook now allows you to alert people if you're safe in the event of a disaster or tragedy. I know a lot of my baby boomers love Facebook. So, but if you have power fails or there's trouble accessing phones or computers, which could be likely, that might not be available. So you're going to want to have a backup plan and consider having a safe place to meet a friend or a family member in case of an emergency, and make that plan. You're also going to want to decide, if you have a neighbor that's elderly or disabled, you might want to reach out and ask if they have a plan, or anyone that's elderly or disabled in your home that can't leave on their own. You've really got to think ahead. Once you have arrived at this meeting place, that's when you can kind of just stop and let the outside world know you're okay. But it's definitely good to have a meeting place with at least one other person. That way you can kind of hunker down together. Tip number 4, storing. Storage, isn't that always the issue for us collectors? So in our car, I personally have a very small, change of clothes for each family member. And I always have snacks and water in my car in the event of an emergency. And a little bit of cash. You just never know. So, you want to be safe and you don't want to have a bunch of stuff in your car and then have someone break in. But you want to be smart and just always be prepared for an emergency. And if it's not in your car and it's in your house, storage, I'm sure, is an issue for you collectors. As I mentioned before, you've got to pick a place where you can easily find what you need quickly. So if that's a challenge and your car's a little bit neater, you might want to consider having a little mini emergency supply kit in your car as a final backup if you can't get to your other ones in the house or the garage. Tip number 5, and this is one that people really forget to do. We're all, some of us are good about getting these things together, but tip number 5 is go through your supplies annually. So go through your kit every year and just make sure everything's working, hasn't expired, still suits your needs. That's, pretty easy to do. You haven't stored too much in your container out in the garage or in your car. You just want to make a quick check. Make sure that your batteries haven't died out or completely disintegrated because it's been 10 years and you haven't looked. You want to make sure that you go through your kit every year and make sure that your food is good, that your water hasn't expired, and that you still need everything that's in there. And maybe if you've added a family member or lost a family member, you can adjust accordingly. Again, I mentioned www.ready.gov if you want to learn more about being prepared or volunteering or participating in their National Preparedness Month, which is in the fall in September there. Another thing to think about, my dear collectors, in the event of an emergency is what are you going to take with you if you had enough time to do so? I've got to tie this in with letting go to clutter, right? It's important, my clients in the North Bay lost everything. And one of them they were a married couple, and they were definitely hoarders. And they had very, very important things mixed in with the clutter. And when the fires came, they were just furious, and people were given minutes, and these people weren't able to find things. One client really lost and misses her great-grandmother's diamond ring. And her husband is really upset about all of the family photos and the genealogy that just went up in flames. And they couldn't get to the really important things. In fact, they expressed in hindsight there were really only a few things that mattered in all of that mess. And that they had wished that they had taken the time to put their truly important things to the side so that in the event of an emergency, they could grab them. When I asked about everything else, the massive book collection, the clothing, all of that paper that they had buried themselves in, they disclosed that losing all of that crap, pardon my French, that's actually the word that was used, was a relief. They didn't have to sort it. They didn't have to make any decisions. When it came down to the bare bones, it was no longer important. And it felt like a relief because now they had a fresh start and they knew that they would not make those same mistakes of putting treasures in with other things and their new home. They want their new home organized so that they can enjoy it, and that in the event there is another emergency that they can grab, whatever they end up cherishing now and not ever be in that position where they're just digging through rubble and not able to find anything. It's incredibly devastating and traumatic to go through. How would you feel, listeners, my dear collectors, if you lost everything in a fire? I want you to take some time and think about your buried treasures. Should you really take some time and put them in a safe location in the event of an emergency? If you had 5 minutes to grab anything that you could out of your house before it burned down to the ground, what would you grab? And how would you feel about everything else that went up in flames? Collectors, are you super prepared and ready for anything? Or have you done nothing? What are your struggles with getting prepared for an emergency? I'd love to hear your comments on this topic. So, my dear collectors, if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, please show me some love. Let me know about your emergency kit. Click that thumbs up button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Or you can just call me direct, 925-548-7750, and invite me over to help get you out of your extreme clutter situation. I do travel worldwide. Until next time, collectors, and remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.
This has been Hoardganize with Rachel Seavey. New episodes are available every Sunday at 6 p.m. and also on the Collector Care YouTube channel. Download Rachel's Affirmations for Collectors on iTunes or Amazon.com, or sign up for Rachel's blog at collectorcare.com and receive 7 tips for clutter-free living. Thanks for listening.